Hello and welcome. Oh, sorry, my microphone's really hot. Hold on, let me turn that down. Hello and welcome to episode 214 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to see you. Here we are. It's April 29th, 2020, and maybe my microphone's too low now. I'm getting some indications. But it's so good to see you. We're going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff today. Let's just get right into it. So here's my screen. If throughout this, my microphone's too loud, too quiet, I've switched to using my high detail, wide diaphragm microphone. I found a way of connecting it. Long story short, I'm using a new microphone today. And if there's something wrong with the levels, do let me know, because I ended up not doing a test. But the VU meter says I'm doing okay. But if it's crackly or it's not sounding good, let me know and I'll adjust. So yeah, we're going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff. Reminder, no plan survives breakfast. If you're new to this stream, maybe you've never seen this before, maybe you're not sure what this is all about, I'm going to be hacking on some stuff and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have like a pre-written solution for anything I'm going to be working on. I have a vague sense of what I want to do, but things might go horribly wrong. I might get stuck. Things might not go as planned, and that's okay. That's kind of the idea. I'm trying to capture software development in the raw. So don't worry if things go wrong. Part of the fun is watching me try and get in and out of trouble. The second thing is that this agenda that we're looking at is something that you have access to. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description for a link to the agenda. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, check out the handouts section. And if you're watching this on Twitch, I'm going to drop the link into the Twitch chat right now. 1 second. There it is. Great. So that's one thing. The second thing is that there is an episode guide. If you're watching this, maybe you're interested in checking out the episode guide for past episodes, or maybe even this episode if you're watching the recording. So the episode guide is a completely viewer-driven resource. It contains information about what was covered during each stream. And it's, like I said, completely viewer-driven. So if you yourself have your own notes, addenda, corrections, things that you want to expand or expound upon, let me know. And you can send a pull request to the GitHub repository. There's actually a pull request in here already for episode 212. I'm going to take a look at that right now. This was 2 weeks ago, April 15th. Episode 212. So that looks right. We're just going to double check some of the links. This episode guide is brought to you by Smurf D, a prolific and primary contributor to the episode guide. Yes, that is the correct date and episode number. So that looks good. And we're going to make sure that the link to the Evernote agenda is correct. Yes, that looks right. And then what were the things that were covered? The scroll position stuff, I showed how to use mock Moz regression and do some bisecting, and using the browser toolbox, and using code tribute, and using Git as well as Mercurial. I'm going to modify this slightly because I noticed that I'm just going to put a space here, fix a typo. Let's preview the changes. Tribute as well as Mercurial. That looks right. That looks good to me. So I'm going to commit that change, and then I'm going to merge this change in. So let's do that. Merge the pull request and say thank you. Thanks. Always thank your contributors. Thanks, Smurf D. That's episode 212 in the bag. In the episode guide bag. Okay, so what do I want to do today? Well, first of all, I want to remind you that one of the things that could go horribly wrong is the Wi-Fi. I'm obviously in my house. I'm in my basement, and I'm using my home Wi-Fi. And if the Wi-Fi ends up slowing down or things go wrong, I might end up dropping frames. I apologize. Thankfully, I didn't really have to worry too much about that when I was recording this in the Mozilla office, but now that I'm at home, it is a worry. Also, last week there was remarkable instability in the stream due to OBS crashing. I apologize in advance if that happens again, but I've applied several I think there were a whole slew of patches from OBS Studio, and after I applied some of them, OBS seemed really stable. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this will be a stable stream. I'm also not going to do any music today. For the past month or so, I've been playing some background music from the Free Music Archive. I'm going to try just a silent one today, and I want you to let me know whether or not you prefer that or if you preferred the music from the past streams. Rulan says, gorgeous hairline. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Check out this balding pattern that's showing up here. That's coming along. That's coming along. It's all part of the plan. Who knows? Maybe you'll get to see me go fully bald. If you go back to the beginnings of the streams in 2014 and watch each episode up till now, you can see my hairline slowly recede. Maybe it's because of male pattern baldness, or maybe it's because of me ripping out my own hair as I deal with bugs. Who knows? But, it's all part of the plan. No worries. Okay, so I want to give an update on one of the bugs that we were working on last week, which was about new tab not maintaining the scroll position when navigating back and forward. This has to do with process flipping. Sorry, I keep using the wrong window. Let me come on, connect to the right one. There we go. About new tab does not maintain the scroll position. I actually found a solution, what I think is a simple solution, which is probably what I want. A simple solution is generally the best one whenever it comes to like software development, especially for something like this, which is a workaround. So I don't know if you remember me talking about this problem last week or the week before, but this is a workaround while the DOM team works on moving the session history code or rearranging the session history code so that it works in the parent process rather than the content processes. And so this workaround is gonna fix the problem for now, but it'll all get torn out once they're done moving the session history code to be fully running in the parent process. So what I do, the solution is anytime you're just about to do a process flip from the privileged about content process to a web content process, or from one web content process to another web content process, is just before we flush the state of the browser, we send another message down. I added this message called session store, prepare for process change. And on the content process side, where is it? Here, we handle the message and we call into the doc shell. That's the thing that is in charge of lots of things, but particularly it's the thing that knows how to go backwards and forwards and load a document. That's like the atomic kernel of a browser in Gecko. And I exposed a method called persist layout history state, which was a pre-existing method that usually gets called whenever you navigate from one page to another. And that method's job is to save the scroll position if applicable, so that whenever you go back, if we remember the scroll position, we restore it. But the problem is that when we do a process flip, we never actually entered the code path to persist the layout history state. So my workaround exposes that function to JavaScript so that we can call it manually ourselves right here. And that workaround, we're just going to tear it out as soon as the history stuff gets moved into the parent. That's the plan. Rulon says that they have the same problem. Presumably they're talking about male pattern baldness, except that they're 17. You know what? It's all good. Just lean into it and own it. That's the trick. Make it something that, hair's overrated, I think. My opinion, anyways. Hair's overrated. Really lean into. If you're gonna go bald, go whole hog. Celebrate it. It's awesome. Okay. Let's see here. So that's an update on that patch. That patch actually landed. It was reviewed and it landed in Autoland this morning, about 3 hours ago. So that should be in Central tomorrow, or later today, but it'll be in tomorrow's Nightly. So that way we're gonna, hopefully we'll be able to persist the scroll position, and that will be better for users that have fission enabled, and also for the users that end up having to they're all going to be using the privileged about content process, because that's what about home and about new tab loads in. So the next thing I wanted to look at was this telemetry issue. So I wrote some tests for the about home startup cache that I've been writing for the past couple of months, and that thing's really chugging along. There's a whole stack of patches that are are reviewed and waiting to land. But one of those patches includes a test that when I push it to our try system, that's, you can think of try as like our before we put it into continuous integration, you can push it to automation and have it run a bunch of tests before it lands. So you can see whether or not you want to even attempt to land it. And one of the things that appeared in the tree herder view here is these oranges in tree herder speak are test failures, and these test failures have to do with the test I landed. This test I wrote called test underscore about home startup cache worker, and it's what's called an XBC shell test, which is like a JavaScript only test. It tests a component that doesn't end up requiring a DOM or anything. Apparently the stream is stuttering. Let me just, is it better now? Is it better now? Is it better now? Let me know. Let me know in the comments below. Or do let me know in the Twitch chat. Oh, Danny Colin says it's better now. So I apologize. Again, it's the home Wi-Fi. I'm doing the best I can. I apologize if the stream stutters. Okay. So this test is JavaScript only, and one of the things that we do whenever we have these tests run is we set a particular environment variable to tell it that it's running in the automated testing system. And one of the things we do whenever we're running an automated like continuous integration tests is we prevent external network requests from being made. We don't want our automated test suites to actually like touch the network like other websites in the world whenever they're running, because that, well, first of all, you'd be spamming, because we run these tests all the time, locally and in our continuous integration systems. Like, and these are thousands and thousands and thousands of tests. And if they're touching the network, we would just be spamming, like DDoSing all of these sites around the internet. So we try to avoid, like some of those sites are our own sites, like our own services. In this case, it's part of our telemetry system, and we don't want to do that. So unfortunately, one of my tests is causing us to attempt to make a network connection to our telemetry backend system. And whenever we detect that, we crash immediately. And that's on purpose. We're supposed to crash. But the issue is I don't know why. I don't know why we're making this telemetry network request. And I'm hoping to try and figure that out right now. And the tool I'm going to use is something you may have seen me use in the past called RR. So RR is a record and replay debugging system. It wraps GDB, or it augments GDB with record and replay capability. And I think that's really going to help out, presuming I can reproduce the issue. And that's the first step. So I've got the patches that I pushed to try. I've pulled them down to my Linux machine and I've built them. So I've got the exact same thing that failed on automation, and I've built it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and run the XPC shell tests. And I'm going to see if the test fails. So let's see here. New tab. Where were they? Test XPC shell. So let's just see if we can make the test fail because it tries to make a network request. And I'm not actually sure what's going to happen. I don't know what the result's going to be. So it launches a bunch of processes. Like there's no DOM, there's no window, thankfully. So we don't have to worry about like things flashing in front of us. It's just JavaScript that's running and like XPCOM components. And test and skip, test and such. Failed or timed out, will retry. Trying tests that failed when run in parallel. Failed or timed out. I wonder if that's typical. Let's take a look at the, oh, and then a bunch of stuff. And yes, we got our, well, we got a couple of errors here. There's one, apparently I'm making a network request to snippets. That's a problem. We don't want to do that either. But what I want to see was whether or not it says something about parallel, like the tests won't run in parallel. Yeah, retrying tests that failed when run in parallel. Interesting. So it looks like the test about startup cache worker fails when we try and run it in parallel. And part of me thinks that maybe that's because, I mean, it's a pretty sophisticated test in that it loads a lot of components, and it might just be timing out. So I wonder if we need to extend the timeouts on it. But I don't want to focus on that right now. I want to figure out what's going on with this network request. So instead of trying to run the entire suite, I'm now just going to run the one test to see if it fails. JAL, is that A? Hang on, I gotta zoom in my eyeballs. JAL97 goes, I like how you explain things as you go. Well, thanks. I like that you're watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. Okay, so here we see we've made the network request, even just running the one test. This is good because whenever you spin up a whole bunch of XBC shell tests, generally what happens is you spin up a whole bunch of different processes to run them, and I don't want to have to like try and figure out which one to run. Or which one to debug. So because I can cause this test to fail when running just one test, it means we only have one process to worry about. And that's good. So now I need to figure out how to debug or add a debugger. Let's see here. No. How do I... There's a way to... On this keyboard. No, I didn't want to do that. I need to like hit F7 somehow. I guess I'll do it up here. Function F7. Okay, so that's how I'm able to page up in Biobu. And I think, yeah, there's a debugger. Use the given debugger to launch the application. That's what I want to use. So I'm going to say, run that again, and I'm going to say debugger RR. So now it's going to rerun the test, and it's going to use RR to record the test. Okra says shift page up. Well, the problem is that what that's going to do is it's going to shift page up this console, this terminal, which is in Mac OS. And what I wanted to page up and like scroll upwards is like a screen that's running on my Linux machine. Unexpected exception, something, fail, or promise chain. Wow, whole lot going wrong in here. That was a different kind of failure. Promise chain failed to handle a rejection. Request was aborted. Let's try that again. See what's going wrong there. Do. Okay, so we're rerunning. Come on, I hope this works. Okay, so here we go. We hit our network error, and that's the one I want to focus on. It's very easy to like get distracted whenever, a bunch of things go wrong and like a new problem shows up. But what I like to do is try and focus on one problem at a time. So, there was that other test failure that occurred kind of randomly. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to worry about this network request. So, good. We hit our crash. That is what we wanted. So now what we can do is we can do RR replay, and that's going to take the recording that we just made and replay it in our sort of like GDB environment here. So we can go backwards and forwards in time with this recording of the program execution up until the crash. So we can actually get right to the crash. In fact, let's do that. Let's just like run the program and see what happens. Let's hit the crash, and then what we can do is we can work backwards to figure out what caused the network request to occur. And the reason I need to do that actually is because the network requests happen off of the main thread. When we touch the network, like for most I/O, but particularly for network, it's best if you don't do it on the main thread. The main thread is where you process user input events, and if you're blocking the main thread, you're killing your program's responsiveness. So generally, it's a good idea to move I/O, particularly disk and network I/O, off of the main thread. And for network, we're really great at that. All of our network activity occurs off of the main thread. But that means that it's the off main thread networking thread, one of the like socket threads, I think, that is crashing because it's like, whoa, you've asked me to connect outside of the internal network here when we're in a testing environment. So somehow that thread was told, hey, contact this outside environment, and I have to work backwards to figure out what on the main thread caused that network request to be queued up. Okay, so here is our crash, and this is on not the main thread. It is thread this ID. And what we can do is try and work backwards to see what caused this this NS socket transport initiate socket method to be called. So let's try and get a sense of where we are. So here's a trick. When you're in GDB, Control X and Control A, I think, or is it just Control X and A? Yeah, gives you this really nice view. It's just Control X and then A. Gives you this view of the source code, which I prefer. It's better than just seeing things line by line, I find. It can screw up a little bit, especially whenever you're trying to view like long strings, like backtraces. And then I switch out by going, Control X A again. You can toggle back and forth. But for whenever I'm just sort of navigating around the code, I find this is particularly helpful. So what we're going to do is we're going to do reverse next. That takes us back a step. Reverse next. Reverse next. Reverse next. We're just going to see like where we... Reverse next. Actually, you know what it might be better is if, instead of doing this in here, let's take a quick look at this function inside of SearchFox so we can get more familiar with it and how it works, so we can know how it was told to do this. So 1305. So initiate socket, who calls that? Is when we receive a socket event. So this is good. We want to know who gave us a socket event. What's our... Let me actually exit the code here and we'll take a look at our backtrace. We were given an on-socket event at line 2188. So here we were asked to do a DNS lookup. So we were asked to that's why we're making the network request. We're doing a lookup for DNS. And so who made us do that? Or in this case, a DNS lookup was complete. So I guess maybe internally there's like a DNS lookup. And then once you have the DNS lookup, what did we do? We... 2188. Once we did the DNS lookup, then we initiated the socket. Okay. You opened the socket to the thing that you did the DNS lookup to, presumably. Okay. And this is all happening because some kind of socket event was queued. And who calls on socket event? Well, on socket event comes from this NS socket event run thing. So this socket event is probably what we want to look at. Like, who instantiated the socket event? Because that's what caused the network request to occur. So let's find out the memory address of the socket event. We'll go to frame 1. So we're on line 2188 of NS socket transport. And NS socket transport, we're some kind of event. Hang on, on socket event. Sorry, we actually want to go up a little bit further. Let's go up to frame 2. So we are running inside of the NS socket event now. So an NS socket event is just like this very simple class that implements runnable. And what runnable is, you can think of it as like a task. And it's got a run method. And what you do is you dispatch this event onto an event, like an event queue on a given thread. So there's like a main thread, and in this case, there's a socket thread. And this event was dispatched and onto the intake of the socket thread. So I suspect that it was instantiated on the main thread and then dispatched onto the socket thread. And the point at which we like instantiate on the main thread is the one I care about. Okris asks, maybe look at backtrace. So DNS requests are not blocked even in local mode. I have a feeling, to answer your question, Chris, I have a feeling that there is an internal DNS, like by default, I think now, at least in the United States, we do DNS over HTTPS, but I believe we override all of these things whenever we're running in the testing mode, so that we don't do these like network requests externally. We probably run either an internal DNS lookup service, or we I'm trying to think what we would do. Certainly, I think Firefox has been configured whenever it's in automated testing mode to not touch a DNS, like not talk to an external DNS server or like DNS over HTTPS server. That is true. I know that for a fact. Okay, so let's see more about this socket event. So here's the interesting thing, is we have a memory address for it, and that is going to be our key. I've done this before, and it's worked for me, is we're going to break on the construction of an NS socket event. Not the running, but the constructor. Whoop, not docket. NS socket event. If this equals the memory address. So what I'm saying here is I want you to break whenever you construct an NS socket event with this memory address. And then I'm going to reverse continue. So we're going to see when this thing got constructed. And here we are. So now I am at a different point in time, presumably at a different tick of the event loop. Yeah. It looks like this is on... So there's a different event, on lookup complete. So there's like a DNS listener proxy on lookup complete runnable run. And that's also being run. So it's like another event caused our event to get created. Okay, so we have to work back even further. What caused this DNS listener proxy event to be queued up? So let us... let's go to frame 3. And we're on lookup complete runnable. So what is this? This is this memory address. We're going to see whenever this was created. Complete runnable if this equals this memory address. We're going to work backwards even further. Okay. And this is when we were constructed. Here's the backtrace. Some kind of host resolver complete lookup on the runnable is run, I guess, whenever the lookup is complete, we dispatch an event. Okay, complete lookup in host resolver on resolve host complete from DNS async request. Okay. Complete. So let's look up NS host resolver and see how it works. First of all, is there any information here about like what thread this runs on? Main thread. Some of it, the host resolver initializes on the main thread, and I guess parts of it run off of the main thread, I presume, because we're not on the main thread right now. We are on this thread, and the main thread will presumably be this one here, thread 1. Okay. So how did this, let's look at the backtrace again. We have this thing, NS host resolver thread function complete lookup. So let's look at complete lookup. There's complete lookup by type, and that's, I think, what we want here is just this complete lookup. This one. And who calls this? Is from TRR return data, presumably. And then that comes from a channel. What thread are we on? Return data. On 200 response. Do decode. It'd be better is if function complete lookup. So we completed a lookup. I wonder if it'd be better to break, like now that we know that a DNS request is being made, if we can find a function on the main thread that is used to do the actual lookup. Well, let's take a look, because like if we work it from the other direction, maybe that would be faster. Check expiration, has usable result. Host record. What am I looking for? Not host record. I want the service. Type host record. Host resolver. Abstract host resolver. Host resolver. Create an address instance of the host resolver. Shut down. Resolve host. This sounds interesting. What thread is this called on? Telemetry accumulate. If resolve host is called on the main thread, we might be in good shape. Resolve host. Who calls that? Sync resolve, resolve internal, NS, DNS service. Ooh, maybe that'd be even better. Going through the DNS service. Because this is XPCOM and it uses, it's an observer, this is almost certainly running on the main thread, which is good. Async resolve internal. These all look like good places to set breakpoints. So let's actually do that. NS DNS service 2, or just DNS service, sorry. The file name is 2, but the class is just NS DNS service. We're going to say async resolve internal. We're going to set a breakpoint at resolve internal. Oh, that's not the right one. And then how do you make how do you use it? Yeah, what's the interface here? Can I get a description? Ugh. PI DNS service. I need a description of this class. Here we go. Wow, okay, not much of an interface. You initialize it and you shut it down. Private interface used by internals. It will never be frozen. Do not use an external. Fair enough. So what's the interface for actually... Resolve internal. Oh, it implements NSI DNS service. That's interesting. NSI DNS service, async resolve. This kicks off an asynchronous host lookup. That looks like a good place to hook. Async resolve, cancel async resolve, cancel, 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 resolve, call it to synchronously resolve a host name. Well, let's see if where we've got, let's hook up two more, async resolve and async resolve native. Let's do those. Ooh, maybe this one too. Async resolve with TR our server. Native. Async resolve by type. That looks like a good idea. Sorry, it's by type. And async resolve by type native. I got a feeling that we've probably got it. So let's reverse continue and see. Aha, async resolve internal. What thread are we on? We're on thread 4 now, on the socket thread. Okay, let's reverse continue. Thread 4. Thread 1. Here we go. Breakpoint 3, async resolve internal. Why? Why on thread 1? What's causing this to occur? We've got some JS here. That's what I want. Let's dump the JS stack inside AS router. So this is, I think, what's causing it. AS router line 210, column 25. Let's take a look at the code. Activity streamlib. Okay, so browser, components, new tab, and then somewhere in here, there's something called asrouter.jsm. There it is. Lib asrouter. And on line 210, we do this fetch for snippets. Remote loader loads messages from a remote provider. Now, this was supposed to be bypassed because the provider, I overwrote it in this particular test so that it doesn't contact the snippet server. And apparently that's not the case. Provider.url, I guess, is not being overridden somehow. So somewhere this remote loader, we're falling back to the original, and I don't know how that could be. So let's take a look at the test again and see if we can figure out how that might have happened. Test XPC shell, test about home. Okay. So the place where I expected the provider to be overridden, snippet. Well, I thought I found this somewhere. XP cache worker test bug test about, oh boy, where's the bug I care about? Here we go. Wow, sorry, there's a bunch of traffic. It doesn't make sense to me that it's doing network requests and the lookup is complete. Isn't that backwards? Maybe it's os5.mozilla.org. It can't do requests if it doesn't know the address. I'm guessing it's either os5.mozilla.org or content signature CDN. They seem to always be resolved at startup. You can have so that test calls example, instead of calling out on the internet, it spins up a small local web server that responds to your tests. I'm guessing that's why you need the local DNS lookups. Are you feeling good? You look a bit transparent today. I'm feeling okay. Yes, I apologize if like the position of my, if like, you know, some of the lighting is causing green, the green screen transparency thing to occur. I apologize. Or maybe you're talking about my shoulder. I noticed that like, you know, this shoulder's a little fuzzy. My bad. Okay, so let's look at the test again. How does the test patch work? One of the things I did originally was how did I do this? Commits, history. I updated the patch so that right, I got rid of this because this is supposed to already be overridden for the testing profile. Test profile. Provider snippets should be empty. So where is this provider coming from? What line was it? Here. Remote loader in AS router. So who calls remote loader? Get message loader. From provider type, get message loader. For a particular provider, load data for provider. Happens because of one of these. Which one would it be? Message loader details load all message groups. Let's presume it's this one for a second. Get the provider from this.state.providers. And is that how this one works as well? Load messages for provider. Providers, this.state.providers. Okay, so where does this.state.providers come from? Providers. State. Get state, return this dot underscore state. Okay, state equals what? There's some kind of like internal reduxy thing. This starts as an empty string. Okay, state. And then we call set state with a callback or an object. Okay. Well, I think what I can do is I'm going to exit out of this because we got our question answered. We know where it's coming from, roughly. This request to the snippet server. This is not exactly what I wanted because the original error had to do with the telemetry server, but we'll start with snippets. We can see if we can figure out why it thinks it needs to contact the snippet server. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that is supposed to be controlled by this preference. And I removed that because apparently, like, it's supposed to be that all of the tests have, like, it was going to be redundant. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to dump services.prefs.get char pref. Say snippets pref. And then I'm going to exit. And now we're going to run this again. Ba-doop boop, ba-doop boom, boop 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 boop. Snippets pref. So there was something in there. Did you see that? Check it out. Something got put in there. So I don't think we're actually getting, like where's that coming from? Is this the default one that we ship with? Let's take a look. Let's see if we can find this string and see where it comes from. Yeah, this looks to me as if, you know, this snippets pref is not being overridden for testing problems common for common. Is this being used for XPC shell? Profiles. Why wouldn't it be set? Let's check another one. Let's check this preference. Services settings dot server. We're gonna say services dot settings dot server. Services dot prefs get char pref. I'm just gonna real sloppy. Real sloppy. All right, let's look up and see what we saw. Services settings are dummy-kinto v1, and that's not right. Remote settings dummy v1 is what's being used. So where does this come from? And from add-on test utils. Oh. Oh, okay. That was probably a bad one to sample then. Let's try a different one. General user agent updates enabled. Cool. Yeah, let's well, XP install signatures not required. Security. How about this one? Users. So there's one for XPC shell user. How is common used? Common user.js. Profiles. Copy. Test suite targets. Common user. Prefs general. Steeplechase. I don't know what that means. Stage directory. I got it. I got an idea. What we're gonna do is we're gonna open up testing profiles common user.js. We're gonna add a special pref. We're gonna say user pref mconley.is here, and we're gonna set that to true. And then we're gonna exit, and then over here we're gonna look for that value. Dump mconley is here. Services.prefs.get bool pref mconley.is.here. Let's see what happens. Now I'm actually going to build first, just to make sure there's no packaging that is required to do this. And now let's run the test. If we can get this out of the way, then I want to look at the telemetry one next, because it's a similar problem. Aha! It failed. Did you see that? Get bool pref is failing. NS error unexpected. And that happens whenever it doesn't see the pref that it expects. So you know what? I'm going to put this preference back. This preference right back. Because I actually think this was the right call. It's strange that we don't have common being used here. And I will file a bug about that. but for now, I'm not going to let it block the test anymore. So I'm going to update this test so that we set the snippets pref, and that should take care of the contacting the snippet server problem. So now let's rerun the test, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, we get a slightly different crash. We get a crash because it tries to contact the telemetry server. That's what I'm hoping occurs. Scoo-boop boop ba-doom boom 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 bum bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum ba-da-dum ba-da-da-dum bum ba-da-bum ba-da-dum ba-da-da-dum ba-da-dum. That passed. So let's run it again. Ba-da-da-dum bum ba-da-bum ba-da-dum boom boom boop boop ba-doop 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 boop boop ba-doop boop 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 ba-doop 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 boop boop ba-doop boop boop ba-doop boop. Bum ba-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-dum bum ba-dum bum ba-dum. Please don't sue me, Nintendo. Bum 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 ba-dum bum bum wow. Let's look at the whole difference now, actually. Still no crash. So what I'm going to do now is rerun the entire directory. But I'm also going to do that rerunning of the entire directory in sequential mode. Let's see here. How do I do that? Sequential mode. -- sequential. Just cause goes lol playing some Mario recently. Actually, no, I haven't been playing Mario. What I have been playing recently, while we're waiting for this to run, I've been playing this. So I'm a big fan. If you don't already know, wow, look at that! Like my hand's got like this. Looks like I'm like the Silver Surfer. I'm a big fan of point and click adventure games from like the 90s. And those have kind of had a resurgence, and there's some really interesting ones. One of which that we've been playing for the past little while, so that passed, is called Elsinore, which I'm also like I enjoy theater. I took theater in school, and so this game Elsinore is about sort of an alternative take on Hamlet from the perspective of Ophelia, and I feel like maybe I'm just I presume based on my own experience sometimes learning Shakespeare is I felt like a collective eye roll in the audience, like, oh, Shakespeare, geez. But like they've done a really good job with this Elsinore game, expanding on the universe of Hamlet, and I like it. What would be great is if I could run this test a couple of times. Keep going, continue running tests after test killed. What? Okay. Log files, verbose. Can I make it wait, maybe? Set pref, verify. Threads. How do I make this fail? Let's try -- interactive. Now I'll wait a couple seconds, and then I'm going to do execute test. Smurf D is like, aren't you ever happy? You don't want it to fail, and now you want it to fail? Yes, I want it to fail because the test failure that I was seeing in automation was for telemetry. It was like trying to talk to telemetry for some reason, and I don't know why. Incoming.telemetry.mozilla.org. I have to try and like recreate that. Execute test. I think it's just going to keep doing this. Like, quit. I don't think that was helpful. Oh, is that what it wanted me to do? All right. And then it failed. Telemetry should be on. Telemetry should be off. This is Tibet. Oh, okay. Different test. Okay. Execute test. Oh, okay. Execute test. Okay, try it again. No dice. All right. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try a different tack. So, it looks like I cannot reproduce the telemetry network request on my local Linux box. But because it's reproducible so reliably in automation, like if it like happens every time, I'm going to try and use a tool called Pernosco, which I don't know if it's going to be done in time for the stream. Like these take like 21 minutes to run on Linux. How long does this take? 16 minutes, 17 minutes. I am unsure whether or not this is going to work with Pernosco, but we're going to try. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit my change just to like a local patch. Just because asks, hey Mike, do you do more C++ or JS coding in your day-to-day work with Firefox? I'd say it's like a mixed balance. Like I'd say it's rough. You know what? No, that's not true. I tend to write more JavaScript, but I tend to read more C++. How's that? We don't need this anymore. This is from an old change. So, oh, whoops. HG revert. Don't need that. We just have this one chunk put back. Override snippets pref again. And now I'm going to push this, and I'm going to ask Pernosco to run. Oh, there's some great talk going on inside of the in the channel about point-and-click adventure games. Just because it says, favorite game as a kid was Maniac Mansion. Fun fact, I also love Maniac Mansion. The games from LucasArts, the point-and-click adventure games from LucasArts were written using a suite of tools that they developed in-house called SCUM, or the SCUM engine. And the SCUM is spelled SCUMM, and that stands for Script Creation Utility for Maniac Mansion, because it was originally designed for Maniac Mansion. They made multiple versions of it. And so, like, Monkey Island was built using a later version of SCUM. Sam & Max, The Dig, like, all these classics were built using a later version of SCUM. They diverged from that engine for Grim Fandango. They built a brand new engine called the Grime engine. But Leisure Suit Larry and Sierra, like, they had their own engines called, I think it was called SGI first, and then it was either AGI or SGI. And then it switched to the other one. It was like Adventure Game Interpreter and Sierra Game Interpreter, one of those two things. And I remember those games. I prefer the LucasArts ones simply because the LucasArts ones are designed so that you can't get stuck or die. Not easily, anyways. Whereas Sierra, it's like it was almost sadistic in how easy it was. You could just die. You could just like turn a corner and die. Okay, so I want to do a Pernosco push, and I'm going to do this with an artifact build. I think that'll work. Let's see. Mock try fuzzy artifact. What's going on here? Oh, I have to do mock try fuzzy. I have to get all this fuzzy stuff. Hold up. So on Linux debug, it was XPC shell number 4. So that's the one we want to rerun. And I'll do it a couple of times because even though it reproduces reliably, as soon as you attach like a different kind of debugging tool, it's almost like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle where, you know, as soon as you try to observe a problem, sometimes the problem goes away because the act of measuring can impact the environment. Yeah. Fun fact about quantum mechanics. I'm not like someone who deeply studies quantum mechanics, but I always thought that it was like, ooh, super mysterious. How can the universe know that you're watching it? Like you look at the like the spin of a particle or something, and like it knew you looked, so it like locked, like the waveform collapsed or something. But I think, having read up on it a little bit more, it's less that the universe knew you looked and more by how we look, which involves actually like using an instrument to get a measurement of like the spin of a particle or something. By getting that measurement, you impact the particle. So it's less about like, how did the universe know, and more like, we have big sort of like clumsy tools. I wanted to do mock try fuzzy help. Good morning / afternoon, Max Jowett. So what I want to do is do Pernosco. That's what I'm going to do. Pernosco. Fuzzy Pernosco. We're going to rebuild it 5 times. And we're going to do an artifact build. Pernosco does not do artifact builds. Okay. No artifact build then. Fine. Smurfd goes, I still have nightmares about that Indiana Jones game. Last Crusade, I think. There was this cave where you needed some hook to drain the water. You know what? I never played Last Crusade. And part of the reasons that I never played Last Crusade... wait, hold on. I just want to do this real quick. I want to run Linux debug, XPC shell, E10S, not quantum render, XPC shell number 4. That one. Yeah. I never played Last Crusade because it's like basically it's the movie, you know? And one of the things I love about point and click adventure games is that you solve puzzles and are rewarded with story and plot development. And I already knew the story for Last Crusade because I'd seen the movie, and I love the movie, but I'd seen the movie. So like, there's no mystery. There's no like, what comes next? Because I know what comes next. So I never played Last Crusade. Smurfd goes, on topic, I don't think you've used this Pernosco before. Maybe not. I've used RR. Pernosco is from the same people who made, hang on, I gotta add my SSH key here. What? Oh, how does this work again? I think it's like eval H agent. That's how I do it. And then, okay, and now I do this. Pernosco is built by the same people who built RR. And what it is like a web front end for, oh, you know what? I don't have to do this. I can do mock try again, and it will remember what I tried to do last time. It's a web front end for RR, which is fine. But what's super useful about it is that because of how it runs in our automation system, you can have basically RR run in automation in one of these, like on one of these machines, and then it sends the trace to, a server where I can inspect the trace from a machine that ran elsewhere. So like this machine, if it hits the error, a Pernosco trace will be sent to the web application, and I can inspect its with RR as if I was on that machine, but in a web application. That's really, really handy. And that's what I use Pernosco for. Okay, so that try push is cooking, and I think we're just going to have to wait for it. In the meantime, you know what? I think we can land some stuff. I believe I've got some patches that we can land that are earlier on in the stack that we've been looking at. Yeah, I think we can like land these patches, all of these. Because these are a discrete bug 1527213. And they should all have review at this point. Yes, so we can land these. Let's go through them again, make sure there's no lingering review feedback, and then let's land them. So the first, no, this is the last one, sorry. The first one is stop using the perf service here. And that was easy because perf service was just being used to like get time deltas for performance measurement. And it was using the hidden window to do that. We don't need to use the hidden window. We have a different mechanism called the components utils.now method, which can get like a relative timestamp, or like a relative timestamp from process start. And so if you take cu.now and take it again, you can take a delta between the two, and there's your time delta. You don't need to use the perf service. And the reason we want to get rid of the perf service is because of a couple of reasons. Mainly because it relies on something that to exist called the hidden DOM window, which doesn't exist for XPC shell tests because you don't have access to the DOM with XPC shell tests. So I wanted to get perf service off of the hidden DOM window. And to do that, I needed to make it so that it only runs in the content process. And so this first patch gets a bunch of these parent process components off of the perf service module so that they use like parent process stuff that they're allowed to have. And this was reviewed, and I don't believe there was any remaining review feedback. This apparently is good to go. So that patch is done. Kate, my reviewer, she accepted it. Let's look at this next one. Down here we've got telemetry feed.jsm. I like rearranged some code because it needs to have like a remembrance of like it wants to have an absolute timestamp. So we have to get the time for when the process launched, and then, you know, add cu.now to it in order to figure out like when a particular thing occurred in an absolute time sense, and then add a profiler marker. And that appears to have been reviewed, and everything's fine here. And I had to update some tests. And that's done. And then the third patch was removing the privileged, like all the parent process stuff, because we don't need it anymore. That was easy. And then the last step was to repackage everything so that it only ever gets loaded in the content process. And this just got review, and there weren't any lingering review requests, so we're done here. This is done. So I think this is good to land. Let's view the stack in Lando, and let's try and get these things landed. So these ones with the green boxes, they're ready to go. So I'm going to say, yep, let's do it. And just go ahead. No reviewer has accepted the current diff because one of them, I think it was the first one, it was like, yes, approved, but please fix these things. I have fixed those things, and because I have a particular level of committer privilege, I'm able to like check a box that says I'm certain that the modifications I've made doesn't require another round of review. So we are trusted to make that call ourselves. I will land these 4 patches now. Which is good because like I've got a whole stack of patches here, and it'll be really nice whenever I can like land these chunks. I believe actually I've got review on these 2 as well, and I'll be landing those in a chunk next. But in a separate chunk. I want to do it like bit by bit. So maybe like once these close out, then I'll land these, and then I'll land I'll focus on the test part. But while I'm waiting for the test part stuff, or like the test part is blocked on that telemetry network thing that we're waiting for Pernosco on. So that's another one of the reasons why I'm like, I need to, I need to figure this out ASAP because I want to land these tests not long from now. Okay, so what do I want to work on now? Once those things have landed, I'm going to disconnect from my virtual machine here on beast mode. I can get off the VPN. And instead, there was this thing that I was looking at. Yeah, I made those changes. Those will land soon. I'm going to rebase these things. We've got like, we've got a little bit of time left. I wanted to show you something. Maybe I'll play a sound effect while we wait. This sound effect is apropos given the current quarantine. You know, I've been stuck inside my house for so long.
How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
That is the great Willem Dafoe in a movie called Lighthouse, starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. I haven't actually seen the movie yet. You'd think I would have by now, considering all the free time I've got. But I don't think it's out on Netflix yet. So I don't know how to see it. I don't want to steal it. Especially because it's like an indie film. Like I avoid stealing things in general, but especially if it's like an independent thing, I really don't want to steal it. Because I think Lighthouse was like a lower budget art house film. You can tell because it's black and white and it's filmed in letterbox but I'm really excited to see it, but I need to figure out a way of how I can pay to see it. Okay. Let's check out tip and then build this. Am I out of coffee? I'm out of coffee, man. Smurfd says, visit one of those video stores. What year is it? Man, I remember Blockbuster. I think I still have a Blockbuster membership card somewhere. And even if, I wouldn't want to touch the DVDs. I wouldn't want to touch anything. Yeah, they got to get that movie on Netflix or some service. Hulu. I doubt it would be on Disney+, but you never know. What I wanted to show you was this. Okay, so I'm going to restart again. And the reason I want to restart was because if you look, this page was cached today, just a couple seconds ago. At 45 seconds past my local time, 2:14 Eastern time, that's 18:13 GMT. This page was cached. So this page is using the About Home Startup cache, which is great. That's what we want. But the problem is, if you'll notice this, I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, there's like this rebuild. There's this like flash of rebuilding stuff that occurs whenever after the page has finished loading. And I want to show you what it looks like when in the ideal case, whenever everything loads and we don't see a flash. I want to show you that. Because that's what we're trying to reach. If I've done this before, I think because I did it, I think a week or so ago, I apologize if you're seeing this again. But I want to capture this so that you're able to see what I'm trying to solve. This is what we want. We want browser loads and it's just boom. No rebuild, no like flash as it as the state comes down. Just like a normal page load. Just one shot. So let me do this a couple times, then I'll go back to the way it is right now, which is not what we want. So I'm going to do it one more time. Have this in your brain, how it works. See how that worked? So now I'm going to put it back the way it currently works. Rebuild. So notice like it flashed up here. There was like a flash down there. I'm going to do it again. Hopefully this is coming across. There's like one frame where like these layouts, these pocket stories all get relayed out. There's a frame where like a bunch of these things get relayed out. And I've started to investigate why that is. And why that is has to do with how, because we have this cached document, it loads super fast, which is great. That's what we want. We start the browser and we load this thing. And then in the parent process, we initialize the components that are used to dynamically generate those pages later on. And those components are designed such that, if once they've done initializing, they send down a bunch of traffic to any pre-existing pages that might be waiting to show like about home or about new tab. Because the people who designed this, they were aware that there's a little bit of a race where it's possible for a page to be loaded before the parent process is ready. And I mean, the situation we're in right now is that the parent process is sending us this information, but we don't really need it. We don't need all of this registration information. And I'm trying to figure out what the best way is to avoid hearing all of it. And I was able to deduce that the messages that are causing us to do this flash are these three messages, these three actions from the parent process. Sorry, let me find it. It's discovery stream Spock's endpoint. That causes a pocket story redraw, top sites updated, and then screenshot updated. And the way I did that was I basically cataloged all of the actions that were coming down from the parent process. And I just started ignoring them. I added a special function to ignore various ones, and I started removing bits here and there and bisecting to figure out which ones impacted which parts. And so these three messages are the ones that are related. They seem to be related anyways. And it's just like a hacky experiment to figure out how it works. But one of the things I wanted to look at today was whether or not instead of choosing, I want to ignore this message, I want to ignore that message, if there's some other built-in way we can avoid this sort of big flash. There's this whenever these messages come down, they come down and they go through these middlewares. This function is what's ultimately receiving the message, and we call dispatch on the Redux store, and it goes through these middlewares. And I wonder if these middlewares are a good place to make decisions on whether or not the action should be perceived. If we did rehydrate or we're from the startup cache, then we just execute these. Actions received before did rehydrate will not be dispatched. So we just receive all of them. Merge state reducer. Returns a reducer that on merge store action will return the action date object merged into the previous state. Okay. Functions. Higher order functions. A function that returns a function. Blah, blah, blah. So it's possible that we could hook into here and choose to not display or not to dispatch certain messages if we were loaded from the startup cache. That sounds brittle. Another thing we could do is we could take a look at these messages that we've received and see what happens inside of our reducers when those messages are dispatched. So the three messages were discovery stream Spock's endpoint, top sites updated, and screenshot updated. This causes the top sites to lose their thumbnails, and then this causes them to regain their thumbnails. So it's almost like we get rid of the thumbnails and we put them back. So I want to start actually with the top sites part, and we're going to see how this works. let's take a look at the thing that handles this message, this top sites reducer. So here's the top sites updated action handler, action type handler. And what does it do? Well, we look to see if there's no action data or there's no links, then we don't do anything. We just we keep the previous state the way it was, which is the initial state if one wasn't passed. Otherwise, we take the previous state and we copy it into this, copy all of its properties into a new object. And we also say that it's been initialized, is set to true, and we add these like rows, these links. And if there's action.data.pref, then we do this or this. Okay. Well, let's see if we can debug. Oh, Danny Colon, you're saying, wondering if it's his connection or mic that has issue. Are you seeing like frame dropping? It's also possible that I've just been sitting here silently and like thinking. I thought I was speaking out loud, but it's also possible that sometimes I just like, I'm still and I think I'm thinking out loud and I'm not. I think that's happened before, where I realize like I'm thinking and I may have just been sitting there for 5 minutes while I'm live streaming, and everyone's like, is he frozen? Is he having a stroke? So if that happens, just don't hesitate to send me a ping or a message over Matrix or the Twitch chat to wake me up. Okay, I want to figure out what's happening inside this reducer. Normally, I'd use a debugger, but because this is so early on, well, I don't know if we have this ability to hook the debugger up so early. Maybe we do. Maybe let's try it. Let's see what happens. Let's do that. And you know what? I'm going to probably have to rebuild the, like, rebundle. Let's see how our test run's going. We're building. We had to build from scratch because we can't do an artifact build, so that's going to take a while. It's too bad. Build faster, and then we'll run. So, this is a stream that I did without music. Is this preferable? Do you prefer whenever it's just like kind of like background noise or like just silence? So that did not work. I thought that maybe the debugger would spawn, but it didn't. Oh, sorry for punching the microphone. So because the debugger's not spawning, by the time we open it, it's probably going to not be the right time. So I'm going to add dump statements. F it, it's dump statement time. Running top sites updated. And then we're going to say ignoring top sites updated message, just setting prev state. Otherwise, we're going to say transforming new obj equals this. And we're going to say dump transforming. And then we'll stringify the previous state. And then we're going to say new state, JSON stringify, new object. And we'll return that new object. So let's see whether or not that'll work. npm run bundle. Smurfy says, I'd say silent's okay. And Akra says, it's okay. All right, silent it is. Hey, we're back to silence. Enough broke for free. I think I've been using just one album or one artist broke for free. It's the same artist that Binging with Babish, the cooking channel on YouTube that I enjoy, uses for background music. Okay, so wow, there's a lot of information in here. The favicons are sent down as data URIs. That's really interesting. Wow, this is a lot more than I expected. So initialized is false. And there are no rows. And the search cuts are here. It looks like it runs a couple of times. Top site's updated. We say we're initialized. And then what have we done? We've added some items to rows. That's interesting. Like, we initialized with just the default set here. Just the default set, which is weird because I would have expected the initial state to include to be persisted from the previous run, or like from when we cached. That's the whole point. So let's take a look at the cache if we can. Maybe that will help. So let's shut down. We're going to run that. And then what we're going to do is inside of the cache worker, dump state JSON's stringify state null. But in particular, we want the top sites part. What's that look like? This.props.topsites. It'll just be like top sites. State.topsites. Let's do that. And we'll say top sites state. Okay. Let's get some information. So let's shut down. The top site state does include a bunch of this stuff. Look at everything that's going. And it says it's initialized. And it's got all those data URIs, like this big fat chunk of data. And yet, the reducer thinks that the previous state is the default state. Why? I think that's the problem. So let's write this down. I think that's the part of the problem here. Let's write it down. Why does the top sites reducer think that the initial state is blank? Well, you know, something just crossed my mind. Which process is the top sites reducer running in? Maybe there's a disagreement because the reducer's running in the parent. If the reducer's running in the parent process, it doesn't have access to the old state. So maybe we're not merging those states correctly. Let's try and answer that question, and then we'll call it a day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to browser components, new tab. I'm going to go to reducers again. I'm going to get rid of this. Don't need that anymore. Back to reducers. In here, I'm going to see if Is this exported somehow in reducers? You know what? I think the reducers always run in the parent process. Just think about that. No, that's not true. That is not true. Because some of the actions are dispatched solely within the content process and don't go up to the parent. So the reducers might run in the parent process and they might run in the content process. Which process am I in? Guess. So how can we detect which process we're in? If not services and not Chrome utils, guess window.chromeutils. Let guess equal parent. Guess equals child. npm run bundle. Ocris asks, by the way, why Mozilla didn't create something like WebKit? Do you mean like a browser engine? Because that's what WebKit is. It's a rendering engine, and Mozilla did. It's called Gecko. That's what we have. Gecko is the browsing rendering engine that powers Firefox. It was originally built by Netscape back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that is the engine that powers Firefox in the same way that WebKit powers Safari and Blink powers Chromium, and it used to be Edge HTML / Trident powered Edge, but they swapped out engines. So we do. Is it standalone? It is possible to embed Gecko, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult to embed Gecko, but it is possible. People have done it. In fact, I believe the Wine project embeds Gecko. There are other things that embed Gecko. Can it be embedded in external apps? Yes. For example, the Wine project embeds Gecko. The Wine project, if you're not familiar, Wine is not an emulator. It's like a program for running Windows applications on like Linux or something. That embeds Gecko. And there are a couple of other third-party applications that embed Gecko. Danny Colin says, it's deprecated, though, according to MBN. Yeah, embedding has never been like a high priority, or at least in the past, since I've been at Mozilla working on the Gecko rendering engine, embedding has not been a high priority. I think our main efforts in terms of embeddability are with Servo, trying to make Servo embeddable, particularly in like next generation hardware like VR headsets. That's where we're putting a lot of our efforts for embeddability. We're really looking for towards the future hardware. All right. Oh, Danny Colin's like, I mean, to use it a bit like Electron. Yeah, there was a couple of projects to do that. There was one called Qbert, one called Positron. Even before that, there was one called Chromeless and Prism. All these various ways of using Gecko as a rendering engine within like a third-party application runner. And they never really caught on. Electron really caught on, and I think part of it was because they found the right way of merging the the Blink engine, or the Chromium engine rather, with the Node ecosystem. They did a good job at it, and there were some efforts to try and release something similar, something called Positron, but that effort was abandoned because we realized that like we couldn't find I don't think we could like find we would just be chasing, like there weren't many at the time. We didn't feel like we would be able to offer anything different. Although that's probably changed now that we have the quantum engine, but we're like, there are only so many engineers and there are only so many engineering resources. If you yourself want to build a replacement for Electron using the Gecko engine, please be my guest. You can find the old Positron code base. Positron was discontinued, but you can maybe find Qbert. Let's see, Qbert. Here's the positron code base. If you're interested, I'll put that in the notes. Gecko as a web application running framework. Positron, whoops. And then there was Qbert. This one's Qbert was a bit further on. And so you could use this if you wanted to test something out. You could try this, Qbert. There you go. There you go, Qbert. So I want to get the information of what's happening. Where's that reducer running? It runs in the child process. And then window is not defined. So does it run again in the parent process? If not window, guess equals parent. And services and Chrome utils. Actually, not services. I'm going to say Chrome utils. And guess equals parent. I don't think we have access to services here. Yeah. If not window Chrome utils. If window. Let's try that. It's probably better. August says, great, thanks. Hey, you're welcome, August. Great question. Thanks for asking. Okay. Let's get our question answered. What process is that in? Child process. And then 161. Never heard of window. If what? How about this? If not this dot window. If how about this instead of window? If not this dot window and Chrome utils. If else if this dot window. Hang on a second. This dot window. Yeah. That's what we'll use. And this not this dot window Chrome utils. I have a hypothesis. I think it runs twice. I think it runs once in the parent, once in the content. While we're waiting for that, how's our try build doing? The build is done. Hey, we got our test failure. Yes. All right, where's our pernosco? Where do we get the pernosco? I think I'm supposed to get like emailed a link whenever the failure is reproduced on pernosco. Let me see if I got the link. And if that doesn't work, then I think what I'm also supposed to do is like, yeah, I did not get a link. Okay, there's like a self-serve thing. Pernosco self-serve. Pernosco, where is it? Ugh. Okay, so I have to go here. I have to like find. Oh man. All right, this is kind of annoying. I've got to get the job information. Yeah, the user experience here is not incredible. So I take that, and now I need to get the job ID. Where's the job ID? Task. Scheduler ID. Task definition. Yeah. So hold on. What is the task ID is what I want. I want the task ID. Task group ID, provisioner ID. Man, there's another way of doing this. Pernosco submit. Where do I find the task ID? Oh, this is the task ID. Right there. I think that's what I want. Whoops. All right, so I do that, and then what do I say? Slash self-service. I consent. Yes, I trust these people. I trust the Pernosco people. Yep, that's what I want. Reproduce, please. Reproduction triggered. Yay! So hopefully I get some... I hope that Pernosco spits out a trace that I can inspect. Okay, well, I think I'm going to call it here. Oh, I did want to just confirm my hypothesis. Ugh, explosion. What is this? Content message. Can't access property window. This is undefined. All right, well, I'm going to find some other way of just confirming my hypothesis that this script is running in the content process and in the parent process, two independent executions. I got to figure out some way of doing that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching episode 214 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. We got to use RR. We got to do some reverse debugging and like figure out where a network request was coming from and find out that XPC shell apparently doesn't run with some of the default preferences for the testing profiles. I don't know why. Maybe worth filing, or maybe that's on purpose, but it's not obvious. And what else did we do? Push the thing up for Pernosco, landed some patches, and then we started looking at like these flashing layout things for About Home and the startup cache, which is really coming along. That startup cache will hopefully be turned on in nightly in the next release, which will be, I think, 78. Yeah, 78. So I'm looking forward to having that turned on, and who knows, maybe it'll even ride the trains in 78 if I'm lucky. Whew, and then, you know, what we get is faster startups. You know, that's the goal. That's the goal. So anyways, thank you so much for watching episode 214 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. If you enjoyed this episode or didn't enjoy this episode, let me know what you think. Rate this episode by clicking on the link in the agenda and let me know what you thought. You know, did you prefer the no music? Did you want the music back? I've got a couple of votes in here for let's keep it silent. And that sounds good to me. It means I don't have to play DJ anymore. Let me know what you think. And with that, I think I'll call it here. So thanks again for watching, and have yourself a great day. Let me just load up Wacky Morning DJ to play me out. Hold up, because my phone went to sleep. Transition back here. yeah, have yourself a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Have a great week. Bye-bye. See ya.